The challenge of trying to help people understand how to live more sustainable lives is really a pretty profound one. It's profound most of all because many of the things that people are actually capable of doing quickly and easily within their own immediate private sort of spheres of influence are not actually very effective in changing the world. Many of the things that people most need to do are things that we all need to do together. Things like building cities that are greener and involve more sustainable building and more sustainable transportation, food systems that that grow food more sustainably, but also that deliver it in ways that are less impactful, and so on and so forth. And these are things that certainly we can participate in as citizens and consumers, but they're not things that we can necessarily create by ourselves. And there has been overall, I think, a move in the last decade or so towards what I think of as the privatization of responsibility, which is this idea that the environment is your fault and you're the one who's causing the problem, and so you'd better go figure out some way of dealing with it. I think it is not a very effective way of mobilizing people. I think that most of us find a couple things we can do that make us feel like we're doing our part, recycling, say, and that's what we do, and we try and hope that it's making a little bit of a difference in the world, and we kind of go on about our lives. So I don't think it's actually doing much, but I also don't think it's actually unintentional, that it's the response that we've been encouraged to adopt. I think that it is the least controversial response to tell people, right? And I think that we're actually moving into a different stage now, where people are beginning to understand that in order to be effective global citizens around sustainability and poverty and economic stability, that we need to, in fact, be advocates for larger systems that work better. And sometimes that advocacy does involve buying something, one product instead of another. Sometimes that advocacy does involve sending a check to an NGO, say. But most often that advocacy comes at higher levels of our engagement, who we vote for, what we say in the company meeting, these sorts of things. And we have a real difficulty in explaining to people the larger systems that exist around us and how we might, as people, as institutions, engage those systems and change them. And part of that is that it is a complex series of problems, and they're all interrelated. And it's very difficult to share with people the tools for planetary thinking. They're not widely distributed. We don't teach them in school. We don't cover these issues in the media in that way. And so it's very difficult when people don't have a sense of planetary thinking to figure out how they might be effective planetary citizens. I think that one of the real barriers there, beyond the lack of access to the information, is also that people don't have much of a sense of what a positive future might be like. It's not only that they don't really have the tools to think about the problems, it's that they get overwhelmed every time they try. People have a tendency to look ahead and see these massive problems: climate change, population growth, the burning of the rainforests, the erosion of ecosystem services, what have you, and really kind of shut down because they're huge, awful problems to consider. And in the absence of having a sense that there is a path or that there are paths that can lead us into the future, into a future that we want to leave for our kids, it's just really, I think, too hard to ask most people to engage with those things. Telling stories of how we might engage with positive futures is kind of nobody's job in our societies at the moment. There's sort of no institution or set of institutions that consider that to be their primary goal. So we really lack those things. They're very hard to find, and where they do exist, they tend to be perhaps a little Pollyanna-ish, a little just sort of up with people, right? That we can do something good in the world, and I don't think that quite fits the bill when people are deeply concerned about what they're hearing. So I think that we need to be ready to engage people about the kind of future that's possible, the kinds of systems that are at play, and how they might actually play an active role in both of those things.